Welcome to the AniMoguls. I'm Megabucks.
And I'm Tycoon.
Today on the AniMoguls, we're continuing our discussion on Disney horses. We already talked about Citron, Maximus, Achilles, and Pegasus, so let's take it from here.
Speaking of Pegasus, there should have been a sequel where Pegasus and the Lost Unicorn hooked up. I mean, they're both mystical horses, so that should help break the ice.
Here's the problem. The unicorn in The Last Unicorn discriminates against non-unicorns. She hates them. When she gets turned into a human, she cries about it for the whole movie and just refuses to stop until she gets turned back into a unicorn.
Yeah, she's definitely resistant to change, and she's not grateful to be alive. In fact, she would rather be dead than be human.
And unlike the Disney horses who are fighting for a greater cause, she just suddenly realizes that she's the last unicorn on Earth. She was like, where'd the others go? I mean, she kind of stumbles into this mess, and when the humans try to help her, she sobs and whines and complains. She's just so ungrateful and doesn't think about anybody but herself.
So maybe Pegasus is better off single, huh?
Maybe one of these days, Megara will find herself a filly, and then Pegasus can get with her. Moving on to the next horse. While he didn't have a lot of on-screen time, Philippe still played an important role in the story. I'm talking about the horse from Beauty and the Beast. Philippe's just this workhorse who carries loads to and fro for a living.
But when Belle and the Beast were being attacked by wolves, Philippe showed his gallant side and came to the rescue. Sure, he drowned for a little bit in the snow, but he made a quick recovery and carried Belle to safety. And you know, Belle and the Beast weren't on the best of terms back then. So who else was gonna look out for her?
None other than Philippe. Belle wouldn't even have found the castle if it wasn't for him.
You know, now that you mention it, this could actually be a bad thing. Maybe Philippe is a sleeper agent, and the Beast sent him to lure Belle and her dad into a trap.
Could happen. I mean, those warm brown eyes aren't giving anything away. Now moving on to Samson, Prince Philip's horse from Sleeping Beauty. When you look at Samson, he looks like a privileged horse. He must have been to the salon and gotten a perm or something, because he's got this pretty little wave, and he's got this prissy, aristocratic look about him.
To me, he's just another white horse. Can we have some black horses too? I feel like Khan is lonely. We need more black beauties in our lives. Some run-of-the-mill brown horses too. How about those cow-patterned horses? I want some of those.
It's true, horses come in so many different shades. But back to Samson, I mean, this was a horse whose existence wasn't necessary. There was a point where Prince Philip was fighting the dragon and defeated it all on his own.
Yeah, it played more of an actual horse role, where it just carried Philip from A to B. He didn't really need a speaking role, so it's good he didn't have one.
Now let's talk about the horse in Cinderella. His name was Major.
Major played a major role, no pun intended, in Cinderella's life. Remember when she was locked up by her evil stepmother and needed Bruno to scare off Lucifer? Well, it was up to good old Major to start whinnying to wake up Bruno. Because, you know, Bruno's a narcoleptic. He seemed to have passed out and needed a wake-up call.
Yeah, the birds chirping and mice squeaking just wasn't good enough to shake Bruno out of his slumber. They needed a mighty steed for that job.
Yeah, he might have a great personality, but when it comes to the physical, Major's not much to look at. He looks like an old horse.
But he admits it. When the fairy godmother turned him into a human, she made him an ugly human. She didn't make him this hot stud. Otherwise, Cinderella might have gone to the ball with him instead of falling for the prince.
Things could have turned out very differently if Major had just worked out a little bit more. Maybe use some of that anti-aging cream?
Moving on, it turns out that there's actually a new black horse on the block. Angus from Brave.
It's good to see Angus representing the minority. He joins Khan in the elite league of black horses. Angus is tall, dark, and handsome.
When I think of Angus, I think of beef burgers. And Angus hasn't done anything to change my belief. In the promotional material, they place him front and center a lot, like he's actually important. But when you actually watch the movie, he's just hanging out in the background like he's a potted plant.
I was happy to see that Merida had a black horse, because usually the bad guy's horse is the black one. But not in this case. Just like Mulan, Merida's an unorthodox kind of girl.
If you look at Angus and compare him to Khan, Khan is sleek and muscular, whereas Angus, he's just an oversized sheepdog.
He's like a sleeping giant.
Although he doesn't seem to have much of a personality, Angus has one thing going for him. Even though he and Merida are besties, he never hesitates to deflate Merida's gigantic ego. He even smacks her around. There's multiple scenes where he flicks his tail in her eye. In a sense, he's almost passive-aggressive. When Merida gets yelled at for entering the archery competition, she rides off into the woods. And soon after, Angus throws Merida off him because he's tired of her crap. And she's like, Angus!
And it's good to see that he did that, because Merida was often just being rebellious for absolutely no reason. I understand the major point of contention. She didn't want to be forced into a marriage, sure. But did she have to rebel at every tiny thing her mom asked her to do? So it's good to see Angus, somebody who's a buddy, somebody she could talk to at eye level, tell her, "You know what, Merida? You're not going to get your way every time."
The reality is that Angus knows that Merida is spoiled. She spends all her days running around the village doing whatever she wants. If she was a village girl, baking in the morning, making cheese at night, doing work all day, she'd realize that she has it really good. But moving on to Bullseye from Toy Story.
Bullseye's not a real horse. He's a toy horse, but everything's a toy in Toy Story, so he still counts.
I mean, we only discovered Bullseye when we were putting this video together.
Even though we've seen Toy Story, all three of them.
There's just so many toys in Toy Story, and Bullseye kind of got lost in the midst.
All we can say about Bullseye is that, like Maximus, he's also got dog-like tendencies. I think there's something in the Disney Pixar water that's turning all non-dog animals into dogs. What is going on? First Maximus, then Sven, the reindeer from Frozen, and prior to that, Bullseye.
It's definitely a confusing situation for the horses.
I would like to see a dog act like a horse for once. Has that ever happened?
Let's discuss the transformation of the mice into horses in Cinderella. Jacques, Gus, and some third mouse, who was picked by random draw, all got to be horses for the night. It's just like how people enter a green card lottery and the winners get to come to America.
Yeah, that third nameless mouse hit the lotto, because he ended up as a member of the Elite Three. They really needed this, those mice, because they owe Cinderella big time. The dress they made her, as lovingly as it was crafted, it ended up in tatters no thanks to those mean stepsisters. So they had to figure out another way to repay Cinderella for clothing and feeding them. So they turn into horses. Whoop-de-doo. Now they can take her to the ball.
Exactly. And the good thing about this is that Cinderella saves money on gas, because she wouldn't be able to pay that anyway. Plus, the mice get a workout. They really haven't gotten to see the countryside.
You know what worries me though? They're probably feeling self-conscious. Because before they used to wear shirts and stuff. Suddenly they find themselves in this two-piece?
Two-piece and a feather boa. It's like they're dressing up for Carnival in Buenos Aires.
Okay, how about a quick rundown of some lesser-known horses? Unsung heroes, if you will.
Well, there's that horse that showed up that Eleanor was riding towards the end of Brave.
It basically looked like the white version of Merida's horse.
Shifu, the advisor in Mulan, had a horse who looks just like him.
I guess that just like in 101 Dalmatians, where the dogs and their owners bear a strong resemblance to each other, they're trying to show that Shifu and his horse have exchanged traits, and they both fused into one human being / horse.
Yeah, and if you look at Shan Yu's horse, it also looks just like him.
I wonder if these owners took their horses to a horse salon or a plastic surgeon, so that they could make their horses look just like them.
We should probably bring up Ariel's horse, Stormy.
It might not be considered canon, but Ariel, she had a TV show. And in that TV show, she got herself a seahorse. And he's much bigger than the seahorse in the movie. He must have been a mutant or something.
Oh yeah, Stormy was like 50 times the size of one of those small seahorses. If not 100.
And this guy, he's a rebel. He's a bad boy.
Yeah, Stormy's a wild seahorse. And we all know, if there's one thing Ariel likes, it's wild animals. And if her dad doesn't approve of it, Ariel wants to do it.
And Ariel thinks she can tame Stormy. She's like, "Stormy, be quiet." She tells Stormy, "If you don't want my dad finding out about our relationship, you're gonna keep quiet."
And Stormy was like, "If you want it, come and get it. Na, 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 na." And then Ariel and Stormy had this wild night. And Ariel realized, it wasn't right. The whole situation.
And the truth is that Stormy wasn't gonna change his wild ways. "Stop trying to change me. I'm a rebel without a cause. If you want to settle down with a nice guy like Eric, fine. Leave me alone." And so she did. She found herself a real mate. Someone who understood her and didn't have a short temper. Someone like Prince Eric. He even got her dad's approval in the end. That's something Stormy could never hope to achieve.
Let's be real. After Stormy, Ariel's dad was gonna accept anyone. Because the reality is that Ariel was lying to her dad's face and going out to meet Stormy behind his back. Classic teen behavior. So really, Stormy was the wildest horse of all time. Pretty much all the Disney horses have contributed, with the notable exception of Bullseye.
Alright folks, that brings us to the end of another episode of the AniMoguls. Want to see more? Click on the annotation to watch our Disney Brunettes video, where we examine the hair follicles of Snow White, Belle, and Mulan, just to name a few. Until next time, thanks for watching the AniMoguls.